I still remember the sound of champagne glasses clinking, the dull hum of laughter, and the way the room seemed to hold its breath right before my life cracked wide open. We were at the restaurant for Amelia's college graduation. My daughter, my pride, my reason for breathing. She was seated beside me, her face glowing with the promise of her future. I had spent 28 years being the glue that held this family together, the one who ironed out every wrinkle, smoothed every storm. I thought I had perfected the role of devoted wife, tireless mother, dependable partner. And then Gregory, my husband, stood up with his glass still raised, his face shining in a way that should have belonged only to Amelia's moment. But instead of toasting his daughter, he cleared his throat and spoke words that would hollow me out in front of 50 pairs of eyes. "I've decided to start a new life without you." It was so theatrical, so perfectly timed for maximum cruelty that I almost laughed. I felt the air shift. Forks paused mid-air, conversations frozen mid-sentence. Every guest turned their eyes toward me, waiting for the explosion, for the tears, for the collapse. That was the moment they all expected me to break. But instead I smiled, a small, deliberate smile, and whispered, "Congratulations on your honesty." Inside I was shaking. Not from surprise. Oh no. That moment had been coming for months, and I had been waiting, watching, preparing. The betrayal wasn't new. It had been carving into me in silence, in text messages left carelessly open, in money that vanished from accounts I had managed for decades. No, the sting wasn't in the revelation itself, but in the public cruelty of it, the deliberate humiliation. And yet the calm I felt was real. Because what Gregory didn't know was that the real script had always been mine. I am Bianca Caldwell. I am 54 years old. And at that table in front of our daughter, our friends, and his mistress, yes, the much younger Cassandra was there too, hiding behind false smiles. I slid a sealed envelope across the white linen tablecloth. Gregory's fingers hesitated on the paper. His smirk faltered, confusion flashing in his eyes. "What's this?" he asked. "Something for you to read later," I told him evenly, my voice steady, almost gentle. Then I turned to Amelia, kissed her pale cheek, and whispered, "I am so proud of you, sweetheart. This day is still about you." I rose, smoothed the fabric of my dress, and faced the silent crowd. "Please enjoy your meal," I said, my voice carrying with a clarity I didn't know I possessed. "I wish you all a lovely afternoon." And then I walked out, not running, not crumbling, but walking tall. My heels clicked against the polished floor, my back straight, my head high. I felt the weight of their eyes, pity, shock, curiosity, but I didn't turn back. The heavy restaurant door closed behind me, muffling the nervous murmurs that followed, and I stepped into the blistering Augusta summer heat. The air scorched my skin, but I welcomed it. It felt like breathing for the first time in years. I heard the door slam behind me. Gregory's voice, no longer polished and confident but high-pitched and frantic, called after me. "Bianca, what the hell is this? What have you done?" I kept walking. A small smile tugged at my lips. He had no idea. That envelope wasn't just paper. It was months of evidence, strategy, patience. It was the silent ledger of his betrayal, the blueprint of my revenge. Because while Gregory was daydreaming about beachfront property with his mistress, I had been following the numbers. I had always been the practical one, the one who sacrificed my dreams so his could thrive. While he spent our savings on failed businesses, impulsive hobbies, and now another woman I had saved, accounted, planned. And when I found the first small transfer to a strange account, I didn't confront him. I watched, I traced, I documented. Every dinner receipt with Cassandra's name on it. Every jewelry purchase. Every lie disguised as tightening our belts for retirement. And then I remembered the prenup, the one he had once insisted on, smug in his belief that he was protecting his own future. That contract had a fidelity clause, one he never thought would matter. He had forgotten. I had not. I had already filed the divorce papers that morning, timing it so that his grand betrayal at Amelia's graduation would be shadowed by my own move, one he couldn't see coming. The courts already had the documents, the evidence was already secure. The accounts he thought were hidden were already flagged. He thought this was his moment, but really, it was mine. I didn't drive back to the restaurant. I couldn't bear to sit there beneath the pitying gazes of people who had once called themselves my friends. Friends who smiled at me over holiday dinners while secretly knowing about Cassandra. Friends who let me host her at Christmas, let her drink my wine, laugh in my living room, and ask me for career advice, all while she was sharing my husband's bed. That betrayal cut nearly as deep as Gregory's. Instead, I drove home. The colonial house in Augusta's historic district had been mine in spirit long before Gregory ever claimed it. I had chosen it, decorated it, filled it with the evidence of our lives. I had painted its walls with Amelia's laughter and my tears. And now it was about to become the stage where Gregory's carefully woven illusions unraveled. Inside, everything looked the same. The antique grandfather clock still ticked in the hallway. Family photos still lined the walls, our smiles frozen in time, lies pressed behind glass. But nothing was the same anymore. Upstairs in the closet, I found his suitcases already packed, tucked away for his grand escape. His shirts folded with precision, shoes, polished ties lined up as if appearances were all that mattered. He had prepared to leave me tomorrow, to slip out of the life I had built, without even offering me the dignity of a private conversation. I almost laughed. He had been meticulous about his clothes always, but careless about everything else that truly mattered. He thought he was leaving me. What he didn't know was that I had already left him months ago, just not physically. Quietly, silently, I had detached piece by piece, building a wall of protection around my daughter, my finances, my future. My phone buzzed relentlessly. Messages poured in, friends asking if I was okay. Amelia's frantic texts, even Gregory's sister Diana. I replied only to Amelia, "I'm okay. This isn't your burden to carry. Enjoy your graduation day. We'll talk tonight. I love you." For months I had shielded her from the truth. I couldn't bear the thought of her last semester being poisoned by her father's infidelity and greed. She had worked too hard, sacrificed too much. And maybe, just maybe, I wanted to preserve her innocence a little longer. But innocence has a cruel way of shattering no matter how tightly you try to hold it together. Hours later, the sound of Gregory's car cut through the silence. The slam of the door rattled the air. His footsteps were heavy, his voice thunderous. "Bianca," he shouted, his anger echoing through the house. "Where are you?" I was sitting in the living room, laptop on my knees, reviewing the documents that outlined his betrayal in cold black ink. I closed it calmly as he stormed in. His face was flushed, sweat beading at his temples, and in his hand the envelope I had given him. "What is the meaning of this?" he demanded, his voice trembling between fury and panic. "You served me with divorce papers today of all days." I tilted my head, my tone deliberately calm. "I thought it aligned nicely with your plans. You wanted to start a new life. I'm simply helping facilitate the transition." His bravado cracked. "You had no right." "I had every right." I cut him off. My voice was steady, almost eerily so. "Just as you had every right to choose Cassandra. We all make choices, Gregory." His expression shifted, smugness creeping back in. "The prenup expired years ago. Any lawyer will tell you that." I allowed myself the faintest smile. Actually, it didn't. Section 12 specifically states that the fidelity clause remains in effect for the duration of the marriage. Your lawyer should have explained that to you. Oh wait. You didn't consult one, did you? The color drained from his face. The realization settled in, heavy, undeniable. The very contract he had once demanded to protect himself was now the blade poised at his throat. "You can't do this to me," he whispered, collapsing onto the couch, his voice suddenly fragile. "We built this life together," I said quietly, "and you chose to end it, not me." For a flicker of a moment, I saw something in his eyes, a ghost of the man I had once loved. The man who held my hand through miscarriages, who surprised me with a Charleston weekend on our 10th anniversary, who laughed with Amelia in the backyard until their sides hurt. But ghosts don't stay. His face hardened again, reaching for manipulation like it was oxygen. "What about our history?" he pleaded. 28 years, doesn't that mean anything to you?" "Our history means everything to me," I replied, my throat tightening despite myself. "That's why your betrayal cut so deeply." He leaned forward, grasping at hope. "Then maybe we can fix this." "I made a mistake. People make mistakes." "This wasn't a mistake," I interrupted, my voice sharp, now breaking through my calm. "This was a calculated plan. You siphoned our money. You looked at property with her. You plotted to humiliate me in front of our daughter." "That isn't a mistake, Gregory. That's betrayal. His mouth opened, but before he could spin another lie, I pulled out my phone, tapped a recording, and played it. His voice filled the room. After the graduation, I'll tell her it's over. A public setting is better. She won't make a scene in front of everyone. Then Cassandra's voice, and she has no idea about the money, Gregory. Again, none. Bianca trusts me completely. That's her weakness. His face drained of blood. You recorded us, that's illegal. Not in Georgia, I replied coldly. Not when one party consents. And not when it's in your own home. Don't worry, I didn't record your private moments with Cassandra. I'm not cruel. I only recorded the parts where you plotted to defraud me. He lurched to his feet, pacing, his voice cracking. I need to make some calls. Of course, I said, standing. Your attorney might be a good start. I'll be staying at Diana's tonight. Diana's, his voice splintered with disbelief. Yes, your sister. She's quite upset with you, by the way. She was the one who first saw you with Cassandra last Christmas. She confronted you, remember? And when you lied to her face and didn't stop, she came to me. That broke him. His shoulders sagged, his breath uneven. He had always counted on loyalty, mine, our friends, even his sister's. But loyalty has limits. He just never believed he'd cross them. I picked up my bag, my keys, my dignity. You have until tomorrow evening to remove your things from the house. After that, the locks will be changed. Behind me, his voice cracked with desperation. What about Amelia? Have you thought about how this affects her? I stopped, fury searing through the calm facade I had fought to maintain. Don't you dare use our daughter as a shield, Gregory. You weren't thinking about her when you were planning your new beachfront life with Cassandra. His phone buzzed again. He glanced down and groaned, rubbing his forehead like the weight of the world had finally settled there. Problem, I asked, my voice sharper now, cutting through the silence. It's Cassandra, he muttered. She's already at the apartment. She moved her things in. I tilted my head, unable to suppress a bitter smile. The apartment you put in both your names, the lease you signed last month. He frowned, confused. Yes, what about it? You might want to check with the leasing office, I said evenly. That application was flagged for credit issues and never completed. The agent called our home phone to verify some details. I handled it. His eyes widened. The perfect little nest he had promised Cassandra didn't even exist. His lies were collapsing one by one. I left him standing there in his own chaos and walked out the door without another word. Diana's house was warm and alive, filled with books and potted plants, and the kind of comfort that doesn't come from wealth but from independence. She opened the door before I even knocked, her arms pulling me into a fierce hug. I just heard from Amelia, she said, pulling me inside. Are you okay? I'm better than I expected, I admitted, though my voice trembled at the edges. We sat in her sunroom, wine glasses in hand. The late afternoon light softened her face, but her eyes were sharp, furious. I never thought Gregory would make such a spectacle of himself, in front of everyone. At Amelia's graduation, it was meant to humiliate me, I said, staring into my glass. A public rejection, so I couldn't fight back without looking hysterical. Her jaw tightened. My brother always had a flair for drama, but this is cruelty. She asked about the envelope and I told her everything, the divorce filing, the frozen accounts, the prenup clause he had forgotten about. Diana laughed bitterly. The irony is delicious. He begged for that prenup. Remember, father had just given him money for his first business, and he was terrified of losing it. Now it's his noose. Before I could respond, my phone rang. Amelia's name lit up the screen. I inhaled deeply before answering. Mom? Her voice cracked, strained. I'm coming over to Aunt Diana's. Honey, you don't have to. I'm already on my way. She cut me off. Dad's telling everyone you've lost your mind, that you've been plotting this for months. He's saying horrible things. Of course he was. Gregory had always been a master storyteller, twisting narratives until he painted himself as the victim. Let him talk, I said. The truth will come out soon enough. 20 minutes later, Amelia arrived, still in her graduation dress, her mascara smudged from tears. She fell into my arms like a child again, her body shaking. Why didn't you tell me? She whispered against my shoulder. I didn't want to ruin your final semester, I murmured. You deserve this day free from his shadow. She pulled back, eyes wet but fierce. Well, he ruined it anyway. We sat in Diana's living room while I told her the full story, the affair, the money, the planned humiliation. She listened, fists clenched, lips trembling. I knew something was off with Dad, she admitted. He was always distracted, always on his phone. But I never imagined. None of us want to see it, Diana said softly. Not in the people we love. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Philip Anderson, my attorney. His message was short but powerful. The emergency filing has been approved. Accounts frozen pending divorce. I showed it to Diana and Amelia. Good, Amelia said fiercely. He deserves it. Her loyalty warmed me, but I reached for her hand. He's still your father. Your relationship with him is separate from mine. She shook her head. Maybe someday. But right now I can't even look at him. He hugged me this morning and told me how proud he was, all while planning to destroy us hours later. Before I could answer, the doorbell rang. Diana frowned and went to answer it. Moments later she returned, her face clouded. It's Gregory, she said quietly, and he's not alone. I steeled myself. And then he was in the room, Cassandra trailing behind him like a shadow. She shifted uncomfortably, eyes darting clearly out of place. Gregory, on the other hand, was red-faced and furious, clinging to his last scraps of control. Bianca, you need to stop this insanity, he demanded, voice booming. Unfreeze the accounts. We can discuss this like reasonable adults. Amelia stood abruptly, stepping between us. Her voice shook, but her words were sharp. Maybe you should have been reasonable before announcing you were leaving Mom at my graduation party. Gregory's head snapped toward her, startled, as if only now realizing she was there. This doesn't involve you. Doesn't involve me, she spat, her eyes blazing. You blew up our family on my graduation day. You lied to me. You stole from us. It involves me more than anyone. Cassandra touched Gregory's arm, her voice low. Greg, maybe we should go. But he shook her off. No. I'm not leaving until Bianca agrees to be rational about this. Diana folded her arms, her voice dripping with disdain. Rational? The only irrational one here is you, Gregory. You created this mess. Don't try to pin it on her. For years I had been the peacemaker, the one who smoothed over every conflict, absorbed every blow, and kept the family facade intact. But that role was gone now. I had set it down, and I would never pick it up again. The accounts will remain frozen until the preliminary hearing, I said calmly. That's in 3 days. The judge will determine everything then. His jaw dropped. 3 days. What am I supposed to do for 3 days? You have your personal account, I reminded him. The one you've been funneling money into for over a year. That should be enough. Cassandra's head whipped toward him. You have a separate account. With how much in it? An uncomfortable silence filled the room. Gregory's eyes darted away. Cracks were already forming in his new romance. Gregory ignored Cassandra's question, his jaw tightening, his gaze fixed stubbornly on me. This is vindictive, Bianca. This isn't you. You've never been cruel. What happened to the woman I married? I met his eyes, steady and unflinching. Maybe you never really knew me, I said quietly. Just as I apparently never really knew you. For a long moment no one spoke. The air in Diana's living room grew thick, like it was holding its breath. Amelia's fists were clenched at her sides, her chest rising and falling with angry breaths. Diana stood like a sentinel, arms crossed, her presence a shield at my back. Then Amelia's voice sliced through the silence. She turned to Cassandra. Did you know, she demanded. Did you know he was going to announce it like that? In front of everyone on my graduation day? Cassandra's eyes widened, panic flickering in her features. I thought he was going to talk to your mother privately. The announcement today. I didn't know. Gregory shot her a sharp, betrayed look, as if she'd spoken out of turn. The cracks in their united front were widening, and I could see them both scrambling to cover them. Diana stepped forward. I think you both should leave. You've upset Amelia enough for one day. Gregory's face darkened, his voice turning desperate. Amelia, listen to me. You understand, don't you? People grow apart. Relationships change. It's not your mother's fault or mine, it just happens. My daughter's face hardened sharper than I'd ever seen it. What I understand, she said, her voice shaking with fury, is that you're a coward. You couldn't even give Mom the dignity of a private conversation. You humiliated her in front of everyone who mattered. You humiliated me. Gregory staggered at her words as though they'd physically struck him. He opened his mouth, searching for excuses, but Amelia wasn't finished. You told me money was tight. You let me work 2 jobs to cover my textbooks while you were buying jewelry and beachfront property for her. She jabbed a finger toward Cassandra, whose face flushed crimson. That's not how it was, Gregory stammered. It's exactly how it was, Amelia snapped. Please leave, Dad. I can't look at you right now. The silence after her words was heavier than any shout. For once, Gregory had no script, no defense. He stood there, his mouth opening and closing before finally turning toward the door. Cassandra followed her shoulders, hunched, her eyes downcast. At the threshold, Gregory paused. His voice was low, strained. This isn't over, Bianca. I'll fight you on this. I met his gaze, my voice calm and resolute. You're welcome to try. When the door shut behind them, Amelia collapsed onto the sofa, her body shaking with sobs. I sat beside her, wrapping my arms around her trembling shoulders. I've never talked to Dad like that, she whispered. Sometimes standing up for what's right is painful, I murmured, kissing the top of her head. Diana reappeared with fresh glasses of wine, raising hers in a quiet toast. To new beginnings. We clinked glasses. For the first time in years, I felt the weight on my chest lift. This wasn't the end. It was the beginning. 3 days later, the courtroom smelled of paper and rain. The judge, a sharp-eyed woman with no patience for theatrics, sat at the bench as Gregory and I faced each other. He looked haggard, his suit wrinkled, his charm dulled. His lawyer, a young associate clearly out of his depth, shuffled nervously through documents. The judge reviewed this prenup carefully, her eyes flicking up at Gregory's side. This document appears to be in order, she said. Do you contest its validity? Gregory's lawyer cleared his throat. Your Honor, we believe the agreement has expired given the length of time. Section 18, the judge interrupted, reading aloud. States the duration is for the term of the marriage, plus any proceedings resulting from its dissolution. There is no expiration date. Gregory leaned forward, whispering urgently, his face turning pale. The judge continued. Furthermore, the evidence of systematic fund transfers appears to violate the financial disclosure requirements in Section 23. She set the papers down and looked directly at Gregory. I am ruling to maintain the freeze on joint accounts pending full discovery. Mr. Caldwell's personal account will remain accessible for living expenses. The family home will remain in Mrs. Caldwell's possession during proceedings, as stipulated in the infidelity clause. Gregory's face flushed dark red. This is outrageous, he barked too loud. The judge's eyes narrowed. Mr. Caldwell, I suggest you review the agreement you signed more carefully. This court will reconvene in 30 days for the full hearing. As we left the courtroom, Gregory caught up to me in the hallway, his voice raw. Bianca, please. We need to talk. 28 years together has to mean something. I stopped, looked him in the eyes, and spoke softly but firmly. It meant everything, until you decided it didn't. And then I walked away, leaving him standing there alone in the corridor, the weight of his own choices finally pressing down on him. Word spread quickly through our social circle. Friends who had once smiled politely at me across dinner tables now called daily, some offering support, others seeking gossip, thinly disguised as concern. I kept my words measured, never revealing more than Gregory and I are separating. These things happen. Meanwhile, his carefully crafted image, the successful businessman, the devoted family man, crumbled like ash in the rain. The accounts he had siphoned money into were frozen. The beachfront property he promised Cassandra slipped from his grasp. Even the luxury car he had placed a deposit on was cancelled. 2 weeks after the hearing, Diana called me, amusement in her voice. Have you heard the latest? I already knew from the tone that it would be something delicious. What now? Cassandra moved out, she said. Already? I wasn't surprised. That was fast. Apparently, she discovered Gregory isn't nearly as wealthy as he pretended. His business is struggling, his savings aren't what he claimed. She told Jennifer loudly that she didn't sign up to date a man with financial problems. I laughed, really laughed for the first time in months. He always was good at creating illusions, just not good at maintaining them. Meanwhile, I was building something real. The financial security I had safeguarded in my name gave me the freedom to finally pursue the dream I'd shelved for decades. I rented a small office downtown and launched the consultancy I had once only whispered about, Caldwell Financial Transitions. My first clients were 2 women going through divorces of their own. Word spread quickly. Soon I was sitting across from widows, single mothers, women blindsided by betrayal, teaching them how to read bank statements, how to recognize the signs of deception, how to take ownership of their financial futures. Every appointment felt like stitching back a part of myself I hadn't realized was torn. Amelia, who had started her new job in Charleston, called me often. "I'm so proud of you, Mom," she said one evening, after I told her about my growing client list. "You're helping people during the worst moments of their lives." "I'm just doing what I wish someone had done for me earlier," I told her. Preparing women for whatever comes. It was more than work. It was healing. For the first time, I was valued not for what I gave up, but for what I knew. Not for my sacrifices, but for my strength. When the final divorce hearing arrived on what would have been our 29th anniversary, I walked into the courtroom, not as Gregory's wife, not as Amelia's mother, but as myself. Gregory looked worn, his suit hanging loosely, his face hollowed by stress. Cassandra was long gone already, dating a wealthy real estate developer from Savannah. Most of our mutual friends had quietly distanced themselves from him. The judge upheld the prenuptial agreement in its entirety. Gregory left with his personal belongings, his faltering business, and the remnants of his private account dwindling quickly after attorney fees. I retained our home, my retirement accounts, and 70% of our joint investments. Justice wasn't just served, it was poetic. As we exited the courtroom, Gregory approached me one last time. His voice was quieter than I had ever heard it. "I made a terrible mistake. Is there any chance we could—" "No," I interrupted gently but firmly. "That door is closed." He nodded slowly as if finally understanding. "You deserve happiness, Bianca." It was perhaps the first honest thing he had said to me in years. 6 months later, my consultancy was thriving. I had moved to a larger office, hired 2 associates, and built a reputation for empowering women during life's cruelest transitions. Amelia visited often, her pride in me shining brighter than any degree or accolade. "You know what's ironic?" she said one afternoon, sipping coffee in my office. "If Dad had just been honest from the beginning, he might have kept half of everything." I smiled. Sometimes people can't see beyond what they want in the moment, and they end up losing far more than they ever imagined. Looking back, I realized the envelope I handed Gregory that day wasn't just my escape. It was my key to freedom. To a life where I was no longer someone's shadow, no longer someone's safety net. I had been the woman who sacrificed everything for her family. But now I was the woman who rose from betrayal, who turned pain into purpose. Revenge had given me justice, but reinvention gave me something greater, myself. If you've listened to my story this far, thank you. If it touched you, if it reminded you of your own strength, or even if it simply made you think twice about who you trust, then I ask you to do one thing for me. Like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe for more stories like mine. And please leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts, your experiences, your strength. We're not alone in these battles.